Hi, I'm Rebecca with the Parent Teacher Bridge, where you can find the ideas and resources you need to empower you to be your child's most influential teacher. Today, we are talking about how do you get your child to read longer words. So stick around. So your child has started to read, right? You're very excited about this and everything's going well, but as the books get harder and harder, the words get longer and longer. And sometimes children can stall in their reading when they have to start reading words that are longer, that have more syllables. So that's what I'm going to help you with today. If you haven't yet, click like and subscribe so that you can be notified when I get more informational videos for your child's education. Before I get into teaching children how to read the longer words, I really like for them to become fluent in their reading of those early reader books that have the small words. So I like my child to build confidence in their reading of these small, what I would call decodable books. These are books that your child is going to know all the rules of reading for basically every word in the book. Now, of course, they will have some sight words peppered in there, but they're not going to be thrown any curveballs. They can begin reading these early reader books, get their confidence built up, get their fluency going strong where they are reading smoothly. They're pausing at periods and commas. They're asking questions like it sounds when we speak. Now, some children just pick up on this fluency a little bit more naturally, and they are able to read with feeling. For other children, though, it may take a little bit more practice. You can use things like toy microphones, karaoke machines. You can even use a piece of curved PVC pipe for your child to speak into. It can even be a paper towel holder, like after the paper towels are gone and you just get the cardboard that's left and use that as a microphone to speak into. There are lots of ways that you can practice this, but it may even come down to you read a sentence the way it should be read and you allow your child to repeat that sentence as well. Hi parents, is your child struggling to read or even hates to read and nothing you have tried has worked? Get my free guide, 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. I'm going to show you the simple tricks that I've used for years to successfully improve children's reading and their confidence in reading. It's easy, it's simple, and it's free. Just go to theparentteacherbridge.com/reading help. You can find that link in the description below. The next thing that will help children in learning to read words that are a bit longer is teaching them that there is something called prefixes and suffixes. And these are those little groupings of letters that can be added to the beginning of words or to the end of words. Now, at this level of reading, maybe in the first or second grade level of reading, your child will probably encounter more suffixes at the end of the words than they will prefixes. And some of the most common suffixes out there are going to be like an S at the end of the word, maybe to make it plural, an ES, an LY, an ING, and lastly, ED. Now you can start by letting your child know that sometimes we add on extra letters to words. They're called suffixes. I've even seen some mini lessons for children where they are called tails, like a word is the body and the suffix is the tail. If the word has a prefix, it can be called the head. Now, in my lessons with my tutoring children, I will, playfully call them the head, the prefix, the body, the base word, and the tail is the suffix. However, I do actually use the vocabulary of prefix, base word, and suffix. There is a Nessy learning video on YouTube. I'll include a link in the description below where you can watch an example of base words being changed into longer words through the addition of prefixes and suffixes. Now you can let your child know how to say these sounds when they see them tacked on. For example, ly at the end of a word is going to say lee, not lie. But you do need to be aware of some special circumstances, and one of those is with the suffix ed. Now, this is one of those things that some children just naturally pick up, and other children must be sat down and taught this skill explicitly. Let's look at the following words that have ed added to the end of them. Jumped, handed, buzzed. Now let's look at jumped for a moment. What is the base word of jumped? It is jump. And if you touch your throat when you say that ending sound of jump, it doesn't vibrate very much, so it is unvoiced. Since jump ends in a sound that is not voiced, the ed will make the T sound. T, t. So when you say jumped, the P and the T do not vibrate your throat very much. Let's look at another one. Handed. The base word of handed is hand, and there is a specific rule for base words that end in a D or end in a T. If the base word ends in a D or a T, then the ED will make the ed sound. Some lessons will say that it makes the id sound, but really it basically depends on what part of the country you're living in. I've seen it both ways. So that is why we say handed, but on jump, we say jumped. Okay, let's look at the next one. Buzzed. If you ask yourself, what is the base word of buzz, and you touch your throat when you say buzz, it vibrates quite a bit. So it is a voiced sound. Therefore, the ED will make a harder sound, the D sound. Buzzed. D. Can you touch your throat and feel how the D sounds a lot more voiced than the letter T, and it vibrates quite a bit more? So those are the rules. You're going to look at the last sound of that base word. If it doesn't vibrate your throat very much, it's probably going to make the T sound at the end when you add the ED. If it does vibrate your throat and it's more voiced, the last sound in your base word, then you will add the D sound in place of ED. And lastly, remember, if the base word ends in a D or a T, such as the word hand, then when you add the ED, it will say ed or id, handed. Now, how many of you were taught that rule in school? I wasn't, but I was lucky enough that I eventually caught on. So keep in mind, you may not even have to teach that mini lesson, but I felt the need to include it because some children do need that structure. Now, when you're showing your children base words with suffixes added to the end of them, one thing you might consider is to have them underline or highlight the base word and circle the suffix. And that basically is just showing them that there are two different parts. This word can stand on its own, but it has an addition at the end. You can do the same for prefixes as well, although in this early reading with young children, you just don't see as many prefixes. But here are some common prefixes that you might encounter. Re, un, dis, and in. And you can train your child that when they slow down and they see a longer word, have them look and see, is there a word that's inside of this word? And then they can apply the suffix at the end or prefix at the beginning. The third thing you can do to help your child read longer words is to teach them vowel teams, diphthongs, and bossy R sounds. Prior to this point, your child has probably just sounded out words with a short vowel sound. They might have even gotten to the point where they are reading words with the magic E at the end that makes the vowel long. However, they need to know that there are more rules than just that. Now, if you are homeschooling, a solid reading program or reading curriculum will take you through each and every one of these. But if you don't have a solid reading program, you're going to want to at least have a list of these that you can follow. This can easily be found online. So even if you are a public school parent and you are trying to navigate, how do I help my child get caught up? How do we get past this mountain of reading longer words? Just look up vowel teams, diphthongs, and rules of the bossy R. Not only will you find the rules, you're going to find what are the ways that we say these letter combinations. Is there more than one way? Well, sometimes there is. Let's just think about O-W. It might say O as in snow, but it might say ow as in cow. So you can find lists of these words. And remember what we did with base words and suffixes, how you can underline and circle different parts. You can do the same with words that have vowel teams, diphthongs, and bossy R. You want them to kind of jump out at the child when they're reading a word, when they see a word. You want them to notice it right away. So you can use a highlighter, a crayon. You can look through newspapers, sale papers, cereal boxes, whatever it may be, to find examples of these. Now, one of the things that you're going to want to do when you're teaching your child all of these different combinations is to find a good speed for your child. Some children may need to go as slow as learning one new sound a week and reading different words with that sound. And some children can handle a handful of different sounds every week. You can find charts with these sounds, and each sound may have a key word to help your child remember the sound that the letter combinations make. It may even be pictorial. For example, if it had a UR, it may have a picture of a turtle, since turtle has spelled with UR. Let's take a look at a few example words that fit this category. Couch, book, shark, and haunt. Now, if your child has good phonemic awareness and they know what beginning sounds are, they know what ending sounds are. Maybe they've had lots of practice with those 3 sound words, those consonant, vowel, consonant words where the vowel is right in the middle. If they've had that good practice, it can apply in these situations. So in couch, for example, they know they're starting with the k sound. They're ending with the ch sound. And if you have told them that OU can say ow, they are seeing that sound in the middle. So the word couch has 3 sounds, even though it does not have 3 letters. And the same is true for others in this list. Now take note that the OO combination can have more than one sound, just as I mentioned with the OW earlier. So if you find yourself these charts online, you can find them on Teachers Pay Teachers very, very easily. You're just going to look up vowel teams, diphthongs, and bossy R, you are going to see the examples of when they may say more than one sound. But as long as your child is memorizing these, they're getting exposed to these, you will never look the same way at words again. So when you're out and about, and you've been working with your child at home, and you see signs, you're never going to see a word the same way again. You're going to be analyzing it and looking at it in these different little chunks that when the chunks come together and the sounds blend together, it makes this word. And as adults, we don't think about that very much until we're working with younger children learning to read. As adults, we sometimes forget, well, how did I learn to read? Can I remember what it was like to not be able to read? And we have to put ourselves in the shoes of these kids and imagine what it's like for them and give them the tools that they need to be able to sound out these words. If your child is in school, your teacher may be covering these sounds. Feel free to ask her or him in an email, what sounds do you plan on covering this year? Do you have a particular order? Or is there something additional that I can do at home? No one is telling you what you can or can't teach your child in reading when you have them in the evenings and on the weekends. You can still have a chart. You can still expose your child to these sound combinations when you see them out and about. When I would drive past Target when my youngest son was a toddler, I would point out the AR sound, and we would say it in a pirate voice, and we would go, "Arr, Target." And he learned how to break down words just pointing things out in his own environment. So look for those opportunities as you go about teaching your child to read longer words. Now, there are a few more additional tips for learning to read words that are not included in this video. So you're going to want to make sure that you check out my 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. I've tutored for the last 7 years since leaving teaching, and there are some things that I've found that work in nearly every child that has walked through my door, sometimes in the very first session, and I'm including those for free in this free PDF. Just go to the description below. You can also go to theparentteacherbridge.com/reading help. Now on my website, I give lots more free resources. So be sure to go out and check the parentteacherbridge.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. Remember, you are your child's most influential teacher.